In the 3.5 years of doing this podcast, we have never cut it so close to the moment that the show is coming out. Literally, my editors are mad. And I say, but just wait. I promise you, it is going to be worth it. And because the gods of Dave Rathical Mountain have shined upon us, we have made this happen. Ladies and gentlemen, we got Patton Oswalt to talk about the Pixies.
Hello. Thank you, listeners. Now, we're recording this on a Tuesday. Does this drop the next day?
It drops on Wednesday, yeah.
Oh, my God. That is cutting it close.
No, but what's funny is a lot of podcasts are like, oh, they'll do it, and then 2 hours later, it's out. But we from adding music and doing this and doing everything, it's my editors just get really mad at me. One of them was online, Jeremiah. He's going to jump right into this and start editing immediately.
Wow. So, okay, good.
But there's no other person, because when I put out the smoke signal of who should we get for the Pixies, and it came back you almost tenfold. Wow. But before we get into that, promote away. Anything you want to promote, go ahead.
Well, if you're listening to this on a Wednesday and you live in Denver, Colorado, you still have time to buy tickets to the 9:30 show of my Netflix special taping at the Paramount in Denver, Colorado, Saturday, May 14th. 7 o'clock show, all tickets are gone. 9:30 show, there's tickets left. I'm taping it. It's my next Netflix special. Be a part of history. And go to pattonoswalt.com and get yourself a ticket, and one for your friend. Why not?
You excited about this one? You really it's coming out of the pandemic. It's, different world.
I'm excited for that reason. I'm excited for, people being able to get together safely and kind of, okay, well, we're moving with optimism and faith into the new world, even though the new world seems kind of awful. But we'll see what happens. Yeah, it is bad, but we'll see what happens.
Dude, it's great. It's great. I've seen some of your new stuff. I saw you doing stuff at the Improv. I saw that you were at the Netflix festival, and so it was a lot of. I just got back. I was in LA for 3 weeks, and they put me up. They put me up at the W, which was nice. It was very, very, very classy.
What were you doing were you doing something at the Netflix festival, or were you doing other things?
I did a taping for Bill Burr Presents. And then I did the Goddamn Comedy Jam, which is the show that I think I've been trying to get you on for years, where you do stand up and then you sing a cover song with a live band.
Yes. Why has that never happened?
I don't know, man. It will. I think after today. But that's funny. That's funny because the music that I'd assume that you would want to sing would be shit like this. And
it would be rough post-punk, but post-punk and pre-grunge is kind of my sweet spot. That whole late 80s, it was like punk is dying, so the people that are left doing it are so stubborn and contrarian, even though things are moving into whole like New Jack City and soft Secretary Rock, and there seems to be no future for punk. And they're like, I'm going to dig in twice as hard now. So bands like Killing Joke and the Pixies, I just have so much affection for them.
Well, what I was curious was because so in 88, you're what, 17, 18 years old?
I was 19.
You're 19 years old. So you're at that perfect age to absorb the alt rock movement, like that is about to sweep the country.
Yes.
We're talking right before Pixies, right before REM. So what I wanted, before we even get into those bands, what was your playlist before these bands dropped?
Well, my playlist was pretty friggin' embarrassing because I grew up a sheltered suburban veal. And so half of my music and culture, I got third, fourth, fifth hand. So I was still very much into top 40 pop rock, Phil Collins, old classic rock, Doors, Who, Zeppelin. I didn't, and it wasn't until two things happened. One, freshman year of college, I got introduced to all this stuff in a wave. It was suddenly REM and Pixies, Husker Du, and stuff like that, stuff that I had missed. This is in 88. But even before that, and this is even sadder, in the summer of 84, the movie Repo Man came out. So the summer of 84 is when I discovered punk rock. I had no idea what it was until the Repo Man soundtrack came out. I saw Repo Man, I listened to the soundtrack, and it led me backwards. It was all West Coast punk, but it led me backwards into DC area punk and then British punk. I had to run to catch up, but even though I was late, none of the music seemed to be angry that I had gotten there 10 years late, and were totally happy to have me hang out. So you get there when you get there.
Yeah, but you just kind of threw shade on like Phil, and I just saw Genesis, which I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, I would listen.
He shouldn't be touring right now. Like he's got the money. He's got the money. Like it was a great show, but he doesn't stand. And when they did the encore, the band left and they turned the lights off and just let Phil sit up there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, look, Phil. I'm not putting Phil down either. What I'm saying is, I was not close to post-punk music. I was close to top 40 stuff. Yeah. Even though I got to give Phil credit, he seemed to smuggle. His music didn't sound punk rock, but he smuggled some pretty dark shit into his fun music. A lot of his songs are pretty angry and ugly about divorce and romantic failure. That song "Mama" is in my book as creepy as Frankie Teardrop in terms of just sheer creepiness on vinyl. So yeah.
One of the things that I do, because since I've moved to New York, once a month, I take mushrooms and I go see Billy Joel at Madison Square Garden. Doing it Saturday.
Funny you mention that because I'm taping my special this Saturday, and then I am talking to some friends. I have friends who do microdosing and psychedelics. I've done a few acid trips when I was in my 20s. Yeah. Now that I'm older and I have friends who I trust, whose opinions I trust, who are getting into microdosing and getting into psilocybin and stuff like that. And I'm going to start experimenting with that. But they all said, don't start experimenting the week leading up to your special. Like, do your special, and then when you have time off, then we can start messing around with you. They've sent me gummies. They've sent me chocolate bars. They said, go put these in your fridge, and we'll get together when you come back from Denver. Then we can start playing.
Or, dude, fucking go for it, dude, and just eat a couple caps and just rip, dude. Just rip. God, he was out there that night.
I eventually do want to do a special when I'm on some kind of controlled substance. I don't want to do, I did my first album, I'm drunk, but that doesn't really count. That was out of nerves. Yeah. I actually want to write, conceive, and execute an album on a slightly reality altering substance and see where it takes me.
Or you could just go full meta and do Facebook, just get everybody in the metaverse. That's the thing. I don't know what it is, but people love it.
Again, you know what I think I'm going to be? One of the reasons the Pixies appealed to me was I started stand-up in '88 when stand-up was dying. And I have this affinity for dying forms. Like, I'm going to start directing this year. I'm directing my special this Saturday. I'm directing when feature films are starting to kind of go away and be replaced by shorter streaming stuff. I seem to be attracted to forms as they're dying. So maybe I will, when everything moves to meta platforms and people are doing their stand-up specials on Fortnite, I will be the last guy out there just filming it with a camera and trying to put it on television somewhere, or stubbornly putting it on vinyl. I have an affinity for dead forms. I don't know why. I just do.
It'd be so funny if you're like, honey, I got a new thing I want to really support. We got to support fracking and fossil fuel. I don't know. It's just, I feel like it's got to come back.
Honey, listen to me. We bought an oil well in Plains, Texas. I know that everyone's got a Tesla generator, but we're going to sit on this for a few decades. We're going to see what happens. Yeah, it's all dead forms, man. I don't know what it is.
It's old school. That's how I do it too.
I love it.
If there's something, but it's like, listen, I haven't listened to this record on a record player, but this is a record I would actually like to listen to on a record player. Yeah. I don't have a record player, but.
And by the way, when I'm in my 80s or 90s and meta or whatever that form is dying, that's when I'll get on it. As it's dying, that's when I want to get on it.
All right. We talked about for a moment like that perfect age. So you said you're starting stand up, you're in college. Take me to that first moment? Because at this point, you already said Repo Man came out, so you're into punk. Like how does the Pixies come into your stratosphere?
They came in through college. I was working at the college radio station. I was also working at the newspaper. I was sent to review. There was a concert at my school. It was Love and Rockets headlining, and the Pixies were opening up. And this is when the Pixies were touring on Doolittle, and I had never heard of the Pixies. I came into they were in the big stadium. It was like half full, and the Pixies opened up, and they were fucking amazing. They were so raw and bouncing around on stage. Black Francis broke a string during Crackety Jones, and they had to replace it. And just, I had never seen something more alive and fun and real and sloppy looking. It was love at first sight. The weird thing about this story, though, is when the Pixies were done, then Love and Rockets marched out. Fog Machine came on, they marched out, planted their feet, did their new album in order, never spoke to each other, never acknowledged each other on stage, marched off stage, marched back on, did no new Tale to Tell, and then that early one, Tones on Tail, the Yeah song.
Yeah.
And then marched off again, and then a month later they broke up. You saw the divorce happening. Now, years later, Trompe Le Monde comes out, and I'm so excited, and I go see the Pixies up in Baltimore, I believe at the Vault, and Pere Ubu opens up, and Dave Stewart is hopping around on stage, and he threw his jacket over his bass player, and it was hilarious, and just was raw and real, and you just think it was amazing. And then the Pixies marched out, planted their feet, did Trompe Le Monde in order, never bantered with each other, never acknowledged each other, marched off stage, marched back on, did Monkey Gone to Heaven. A month later, they had broken up. Like I saw, that's what happened. That's what 4 or 5 years on the road does to a band.
Yeah.
It just drives them all crazy, and they're like, I'm done. And then they so it was amazing. The parallels of seeing that to me was incredible.
I hate that. Like I just got into Bauhaus, and so now to find out that they were Love and Rockets, it's
crazy.
I know, but dude, Bauhaus is so cool, and I'm not into goth shit whatsoever, but they're so cool. Bela Lugosi's dead. I mean, that could be 25 minutes long, and I want all of it. But
Bauhaus and Joy Division are in that category, and I also put bands like the Buzzcocks or even like the Coup and Boots Riley, where they're in a certain genre, but they can't help writing catchy tunes, and they're in a genre that doesn't reward catchy tunes, and they just it's not my fault that I'm this good a songwriter. Like you can tell the Buzzcocks, you could feel in the vocals they want to be this angry punk rock band, but they're like, I got all these goddamn hooks and riffs. It's not my fault. Like, all their songs are catchy. There's a reason that there's a Buzzcock song was used, I think, in a Subaru Outback commercial. Because their songs are just fun. They can't help it. They're good songwriters.
Dude, So Alive is just a perfect, synth pop.
Yes!
It's so pop punk. It's got all the elements of everything that I love. It's sexy. It's dark. Oh, and you watched them break up.
It literally, by the way, in So Alive, they have the background chorus of singers that, if I'm not mistaken, is the same background chorus of singers in Hot Chocolate's Everyone's a Winner. It's the same, you never fail to satisfy. It's the same rising thing that shows up later in So Alive. They're the exact same ones.
That's so
I
funny.
love it. Yeah.
So you see the band, tell me, how did it become this? How did it influence you? How did it change you? Because it seems to me like this is a band that you have talked about multiple times, and you have put out there how much you love them, which is great. So,
well, it
take
was
me
also,
there.
yeah, I mean, the big influence on me, especially watching that show opening for Love and Rockets, was because up until that time, as a stand-up, I still had that mindset of you get ready for a show, you put on different clothes, you put on a different persona, you're putting on a show, and you put on your show clothes. And Love and Rockets, clearly, when they come out, they've got their rock star clothes on, and their rock star fog machine, and their rock star lights. And the Pixies look like they had just gotten finished loading their own equipment. They were so raw and stripped down. to the point where there, in other words, there was so nothing interesting about what they were wearing that it forced you to focus just on the music. There was nothing else to look at except the fact that these nondescript, almost forgettable looking people were the most amazing music was roaring out of them. And it gave you this sense of confidence that if they're that confident to walk out like that and just let it fucking rip. I mean, even a band like the Ramones or later like Talking Heads, which my music theory teacher at the time said the Talking Heads dress like they're not ready for a festival. They're ready for Lent. They're all in gray. They go out of the way to give you nothing to look at. But the fact that they're all dressed in pale gray gives you something to look at. The Pixies were like, and the Ramones, yes, the Ramones are very stripped down, but they all have leather jackets and they're all named Ramone. So there's still, and there's a sense of art direction going on there. The Pixies was so aggressively anti any of that. Like, it was absolutely stripped down. There was no light package. There was nothing. It was, here we are. Don't get this. There's nothing to see here. Listen to what we're doing. And it just blew me away. And I just kind of never looked back. And it really started changing how I really got into, I want to dress on stage exactly like I am off stage. I want to talk on stage exactly like I talk off stage. Like, it was that kind of, I need to get that pure.
How far into stand-up were you?
I had been, at the time I saw them, when did Doolittle come out? 90 or 89?
Doolittle came out in 98, but hold on. Jeremiah, can you look that up while I look for it?
Was Doolittle 89?
89, yeah. It was the year after.
Okay, so I had been doing stand-up for 1 year. And that first year was very much about, I got like a suit jacket on and I have like a cool t-shirt under the suit jacket because that's what everyone looks like and I've got the uniform. And then after seeing the Pixies, it very much became whatever I'm wearing that day, I'm just going to go up in that. But there's going to be no separation.
But also, isn't that kind of like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but it's like, at the beginning of the alt comedy scene, or is that further into the 90s?
Well, I mean, the alt comedy scene exploded in 92, 93, but it was going on from the late 80s, just like grunge blew up in 91, but it had been going on for 5 or 6 years. It just had no attention on it. What was amazing about the alt comedy scene came out of the most pedestrian strip mall comedy clubs. People like, especially the two people that really truly started it were Janine Garofalo and Dana Gould, who people forget were total road dogs, could kill in clubs. They were solid club comics who got so good at what they were doing that the boredom started to set in and they started to play around with exactly how personal can I make things on stage? How immediate can I start making it in a club setting? It's why Bill Hicks is so kind of miraculous in that he's the godfather of that scene. He wasn't doing his amazing, groundbreaking stuff in a coffee shop or the Largo or the Uncabaret. He was doing it at, as Dana would say, Uncle Fucker's Chuckle Hut. He was in clubs where people are there they just want to see jokes about airline food and my wife's crazy and blah, blah, blah. And suddenly there's this, that kind of thing reminds me of Kurt Vonnegut's Kilgore Trout, the way that he is a guy, he's a prophet, but his stuff is going unheard because it's being said in like porno magazines and spank mags, like all his stories that can actually save humanity are being published in the shittiest venues. So people naturally go, this can't be important. It's in an issue of Jugs. Who the hell reads this shit, And it was the same with Bill Hicks. Like, how he was just one of many people that they saw at the, at the Go Bananas or whatever. Like, so that, and the Pixies also were coming out of, post-punk. Punk was dying, kind of lost. There were a lot of big shirts going on. There was a lot of Queensryche. There was a lot of, like, metal was huge and big hair. And, again, big hair and fog machines. Duran Duran, handsome models doing rock. And here come the fucking Pixies, who look like every other band's roadies. Or how'd the roadies get up there? Why is he just screaming?
Yeah.
Like, it was so refreshing.
That's what we had Tom Murillo on to talk about the Clash.
Wow.
And he said, we're talking about Sandinista. And I remember he said, watching them was like, I can do that. The way they have it set up, they were just regular dudes. They had their amps on like a chair, mic'd, same setup that I had. And I was like, I can do that. Because before, I mean, even maybe with punk too, because punk, even though like, you know, from what I know about it, and this is excluding Fugazi, Minor Threat, and Bad Brains, the DC stuff, which was like very raw and just looked like regular guys, but kind of tough.
Yeah.
But there is like when you talk about like the Sex Pistols, you know, that's such a like, even though they're like it's do it yourself, the way they look is just so contrived, from the leather jackets with the things in their lips and the hair. Like it's like most people are like, oh, I don't want to do that because I don't want to pierce my face and get a mohawk. But then
keep in mind though, everyone that I remember people were down on groups like NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys. I'm like, the NSYNC and Backstreet Boys are just as manufactured as the Sex Pistols and Led Zeppelin. Sex Pistols and Led Zeppelin were constructed by outside forces. Let's bring the best of what's representative of youth at the time and roll the dice with this. So, you know, now that I think that Zeppelin and the Pistols had way more depth and meat to their music, but there was a lot of contrivance. There's a lot of contrivance in a guy. You know, when you see a mohawk in different colors, you're like, that took a lot of time and money and focus to do. Yeah. Whereas the Pixies, like, I don't know if they took a shower today. There's such a aggressive non-look that went on. All of the time here went into practicing and trying to figure out what will make the music sound the best. I could give a fuck what I look like.
Yeah. How did everything change after the Pixies came in? Like, how did, like, I mean, now you're doing stand-up, you're working at the college radio station. We were going to William and Mary, right?
Went to William and Mary, yeah.
Colonial. Oh, that was my mom used to take us to go. Like, we used to go to Colonial Williamsburg in that area.
Really?
Like, yeah, dude. I was a whole thing where it's like, and now we're here at the butter churner, and you're like, oh man.
Do you want to fight King George? Like,
you're like, I just want to find the bathroom, dude.
I lived just off of Duke of Gloucester Street, or as we called it, Dog Street, right in college. I mean, for me, it was. I changed in ways that I didn't realize I was changing. Like, I started doing stuff on stage because before then I was very much focused on, got to be a laugh every second, just got to be animated, going. I became less and less afraid of silence and long passages where there aren't any laughs, and I was more confident enough to build up to something and let it be quiet, let it be quiet, let it be quiet. Boom! You know, which is what Pixies, loud, quiet, loud. Like,
loud, quiet, loud. Yeah.
Loved that. Kind of, you know, it was when you're that age, you're looking for anything that will give you a false sheen of confidence. So going out of my way to not dress for the stage and go into silences was that whole, this is how confident I am. Yeah. Because I didn't actually have the real confidence. So I'm going to do this kind of defiant version of confidence. Yeah. Try to, like, you know,
Yeah. So speaking of that concert though, because I like how you mentioned the quiet, loud, loud, because it's got to end on loud. But
God,
quiet, loud, quiet. How, like, was the show, that first show that you saw with them? Was that just like literally the record, the sound? I mean, was it heavier? Was it gnarlier? Like, what? Like, do you remember?
It wasn't. The thing about the Pixies aren't heavy, they're raw. Even the silence is raw because they always make sure to put the silent or quiet parts either next to the biggest, loudest, jangliest parts, or especially you'll notice a lot of this on Surfer Rosa, that they the silence is a threatening lurk. It's somebody is just talking under their breath and you realize they're about to explode. Yeah. There's nothing. I always heard that when you're in a fight situation, if someone is coming at you, waving their arms and screaming, what they're trying to do is they're trying to shut the fight down before it happens. That's why they do that. You make yourself big and loud, and maybe the other person will go, okay, calm down, you're right, whatever. But if someone is walking towards you quietly and their face is passive, run.
You're
because
fucked.
They're ready to go.
You are fucked.
And the Pixies really recreate that feeling in their silence of, it's one thing to be a loud, crazy drunk at a bar, but a quiet, seething drunk is always like, oh, okay, this is not good. This is about to go really wrong, and I got to get the fuck out of here. And they really, I mean, again, think of where they came up from. Boston, UMass, they must have seen a lot of that. Because Boston is the world capital of seething, angry Irish drunks who are really, really quiet until they're not.
Yeah.
And I think you learn very young in Boston, like, Don't worry about the yelling guy. Worry about the quiet guy. Get away from the quiet guy.
All right, just so for the fans out there that don't know about the Pixies, we got a little blurb we're going to read.
Yeah, go ahead.
So they are Beantown Bass, formed in 1986, consisted of Black Francis on vocals, rhythm guitar, Kim Dale on bass and backing vocals, Joey Santiago on lead guitar, and David Lovering on drums. They're associated with the 90s alternative boom, and the roots of that are found on today's album of discussion. And the little like skadoodle we have, Francis and Santiago met while attending UMass, and Kim was the only person to respond for an ad looking for a bassist that liked Peter, Paul, and Mary and Husker Du. Dude, Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Oh my God, that's the Loud, Quiet, Loud. They literally put it in their fucking ad.
Yeah, dude. By the way, like the one band that I've seen more than anybody is Peter, Paul, and Mary because of my parents. I've seen them like 12 times.
No,
yeah,
they dragged you to go see them. Oh boy.
Yeah, Wolf Trap, and
that's fucking Wolf Trap. I saw so many shows at Wolf Trap, and Wolf Trap was another one of those places where this is going to be a weird side note, but before I ever became a comedian, I saw Jay Leno there, part of some afternoon music and comedy festival. I didn't even know there was comedy. I just there were some bands there. I think the Fabulous Thunderbirds were there or somebody, and we're all sitting out in the lawn. Everyone's getting hammered. And there's a band, and then a fucking guy comes out with a weird haircut and this suit, and he's just standing there talking, and he got you know what the lawn on Wolf Trap is like in the middle of the afternoon. Everyone's just wandering around. No one, and he focused that whole lawn at 3 p.m. Everyone's sun-blind, sun-drunk, afternoon drinking, and just focused everyone. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, I think I want to do that someday.
Yeah.
But I couldn't even conceive of what he was doing because then he said thank you and left. And then another band came on. It was like, what the fuck did I just see? It was amazing.
They were like, Puff the Magic Dragon, live by. I was the worst. It was the worst. But it was one of the first places I ever smoked pot and went to a concert because I was like, I'm getting high and watching them this time because I got to see why everybody's into them.
You must have gotten a contact high before you knew what weed was. If your parents were taking you. Yeah,
nobody in my family ever really smoked pot. And so I think right around 13, 14 is when I smoked. And I think like we started going when I was like 8 years old. So if we did, I didn't know it. It could have just made me feel like I took more, anti-hyperactivity medication. But for the most part, I was pretty good. But dude, it's a terrible concert high too.
Yeah, you're right.
It's just bad. After recording a demo,
your head, Tom Dooley. Oh God, you're ruining my buds.
Come on, man, dude, this is lame. After recording a demo tape known as the Purple Tape, it found its way to independent label 4AD. Now, I did some research on 4AD. Like, did that mean anything to you back then?
I didn't even understand what record labels were. I just thought there was one company that put out. I was such a smacked ass suburban kid. I didn't know from record labels. I had no idea.
Sure. So when I was talking to my buddy about it, is like this was like another thing that added to not the mystery, but the legend of Pixies, because 4AD was a record label that was primarily these like hip British and specifically British, like Bauhaus, Cocteau Twins. So it was kind of, it added a little like cool factor that this band from Boston is on this British like hip label.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
cool.
didn't. Did they have a man in the States that heard of them, or like how did that's interesting?
I don't know.
The
Jeremiah,
British
can you look
label
that up? Can you look that up, bud?
The British label was like, we've got to expand our canvas, bring these Bostonians into it.
I've heard they're very good. I've heard this loud, quiet, quiet.
It's a bit jangly, but then it calms down a bit, and then it's jangly.
It's jangly again.
It's ever so delicious.
It's more plum pudding. So they a mini LP called "Come On, Pilgrim" was then released with 8 of those tracks. The religious lyrics on this and later albums came from Francis's parents being born again Christian in a Pentecostal church, and that leads us to today's record. I hate to say this, what I'm about to say. But I hate to say it. No. I love this. I'm so glad. I had heard Pixies throughout the years, but my first introduction to Pixies real introduction was "Where Is My Mind" at Fight Club. Much like everybody.
I think that's a lot of people's intro. But you know what? it doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there. You know, I
Yeah.
think that's all that matters to me. If that's how you get, look, my introduction to punk rock was the summer of '94, the Repo Man soundtrack. No one was going, sorry, you can't be into punk rock, too late. No, we're glad you got here. Welcome
Yeah.
aboard. You're in.
How did that feel though when because like that is like really kind of like a cool way. I know this sounds weird and lame what I'm about to say, but it's a cool way to be introduced because you know, Where's My Mind is such a cool song. And then Fight Club is this cool movie, and it was a cool book, and it was the cool director. And you're also getting Brad Pitt in his like Robert Redford, like sexiness years where he's as cool in the best shape. Like, dude, Fight Club, regardless of what to say it or not, it's on IMDb in the top, I think it's definitely in the top 20 of like user ratings because it's a great film. And then to end it with this incredible song that most people were like, wait, what is this? I mean, were you mad? Were you like, were you like,
well,
good for them?
Hang on. Doesn't the song also play in the opening credits when they're going through the synapses of the brain? Isn't it playing there, or is that another movie? I know that Where Is My Mind has become like the Jeff Buckley Hallelujah, where it's being used in too many movies now. Like, I think I agree with Quentin Tarantino. Once a song is used in a film, if it's used perfectly, then it belongs to that film.
Yeah.
You know. So by the time I saw Fight Club, I had met enough people in the music industry that I had lost that whole, sell your shit, because I knew how penurious and awful record contracts were and how brutal touring is. And if anyone I knew or didn't know that was a musician that can make some money off their goddamn music, I was like, good for them.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear. I forgot who said it, but there was some punk rocker that one of their songs was used in a commercial, and they're like, some interview was asking, what do you hear? What do you think of when you hear that song in this bank commercial? And he goes, I hear my kid's teeth straightening. That's what I hear. When I hear that song in the commercial, that's the sound of my kid's teeth straightening. So shut the fuck up. So that I was more than happy to hear it. And I was really happy. I don't know if you saw James Gunn's Suicide Squad. They used is it Chained? It's something off of Doolittle in a beautiful fight sequence in the rain. That was oh god damn it, this is gonna drive me crazy. Anyway, it's one of their songs. Hey, it's Hey.
Hey, I'm trying to
meet you. Yeah, and they use it in a fight sequence in this overexposed white rain, and it is fucking amazing.
Well, but that makes sense, though. But that makes sense, Patton, because we're talking like, look, David Fincher, a very cool director, like James Gunn, a very good director, and a guy that loves comic books. So it's like the cool kids are using it and giving it to everybody else where they know it's going to be able to get out there. I mean, did you notice that amongst like your comedian friends, like as we were talking about the beginning of the alt scene, did you notice that you had these connections to bands like the Pixies were?
Yeah, well, we especially had connections to bands and to media that had to be passed around. Like where you lived in the suburbs, you couldn't go to the record store and pick up a Pixies song. You had to somehow get into the city and get to Commander Salamander or get to Penguin Feather. Maybe they would have it.
Wait, did you say Commander Salamander?
Yes, I did. Right on M Street, man.
Yeah, dude.
Hell yeah. But you couldn't go to Sam Goody in the suburbs and get a Pixies album. So you had to either get to it in the city or have a friend make you a tape. So a lot of my early stuff that I was into was stuff that was passed around by friends. Like, here, check this out. Here, I made you this tape. Because that was the only net. It was pre-internet. We were passing stuff around and connecting everything. And also with all the archival tapes of the Farting Minister and Orson Welles Drunk and like all the classic videotapes that would get passed around, and then Shut Up Little Man and the Garden Grove Calls and the Jerky Boys. It was a network of check this out. You got to check this out. And after a while, you started to realize which friends you could really, really count on to always give you good stuff.
Yeah.
And those friends are great to have.
Oh, they're the best, man. Yeah. They're the best.
My life, the guy the comedian that introduced me to the Pixies after I saw them in concert, he was like, oh, get this, is Blaine Capatch. And Blaine is still my connection to everything. We always points me towards amazing bands that I would not have heard of if he hadn't shown me.
So funny you say that, because Blaine came on to do Pink Floyd and not like, Animals or The Wall. He did, what was it? Is it Saucer Piper? No, Piper at the Gates of Dawn. So it's the last, and dude could like just go. Like I was like, thank you, Lord, for you, Blaine, because you saved it. Like he knew so much and loved Syd Barrett so much. That was perfect. Blaine,
he gave me Syd Barrett's solo album, the one with Octopus on it. I didn't know that Syd did a solo album, and it's great.
He's got everything. He knows he knows the full discography.
I'm amazed Blaine didn't do an XTC album, because that's another one of Blaine's obsessions.
I don't think we have that on the list.
Have him back on to do Drums and Wires. He will go off.
Because we are bound by this list, the 500 greatest albums list. So that's why.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're like, it sucks, dude. This list, I hate this list because because we're going to have Pixies, Surfer Rosa. And then the next one's like Jefferson Starship live at Toledo. And you're like, I don't know. You can't get an audience with that. Like you lose all the momentum.
Who are you going to call? Oh, no.
No idea.
One of your friends going to have to pull a short straw, man. I don't know what to tell you.
I'll just keep calling Blaine. I'm just going to keep going to that well.
Blaine, come in here.
So, go ahead.
Well, what was your introduction to the Pixies? When did you first heard them in Fight Club? Way after the fact.
So I had a really cool friend named Paul Beddington, and Paul was the guy that I started going to the Black Cat with. I started going to the 930 Club, and he was the guy that got me into, I guess I don't even call it just indie rock, because I grew up so hair metal, so grunge, and then in that like 1990. Like mid to late 90s. It's just, that was when I met Paul, and he would introduce me to Fugazi and all of these bands that I just thought, because I thought he was cool. So if he thought it was cool, then I thought it was cool. But he would play Pixies and I would hear it. But I think I was so closed off musically for so many years, where I was like, if it's not Radiohead, if it's not the Beatles, if it's not these bands, then I don't want to listen to them. And then, I think in 1998, 99, I went to go see Fight Club, and I heard that song, and I just was like, what is this? And then I went home on LimeWire or Napster, one of them.
Oh my God.
And so, set up the computer, waited 7-8 hours, it downloaded, and then I listened to it, and I was like, this song rules. But here's the thing, Patton, is that it never went anywhere further than that. I never had like an inkling to really like dig into them. Now, what's funny though, is all the bands that I liked that I had been listening to were influenced by the Pixies, like Nirvana. There's no Nirvana without Pixies.
They flat out said, he told Butch Vig, I want to do a Pixies album. Or I think he wanted Smells Like Teen Spirit to sound like a Pixies song. Or that was the instruction. Or something like that.
Their whole music, the whole thing. And it also goes back to why Steve Albini is the producer, not only of this, but he's the producer of In Utero, because Nirvana, I mean, it's like you hear it so perfectly. The quiet, loud. It's just, their whole thing. Come As You Are, almost everything off of In Utero, which In Utero, it sounds like a Pixies record, but just darker. Yeah. But also, and this is the thing I want to move into too, is themes, because this is a dark record. Like lyrically, this is not like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna go and play tennis with my friends. Like this is this is some sad, like crazy shit.
Not just like in terms of the sound. It's one thing to sound dark, but the lyrics and the subject matter, there's a lot of either mutilation or mutation or like physical deformity, that kind of references to stuff like that. There is a real sense of hopelessness, and there's also a sense, the way that they do the vocals in I got Something Against You, of someone who is powerless, who's been powerless for so long, that I want to have contact with someone even if I'm damaging them. Like that's what the desperation in that song of I Got Something Against You is, I want contact under any circumstances. And it's so threatening and weird. Yeah. And I think that was a lot of the frustration that was coming out at the time. It really captured that time.
So Bone Machine, the inspiration for this track were girlfriend, unfaithfulness, creepy pastor whose intentions I later questioned, in that order. This is what I guess this is from Black. He also described the Bone Machine as the hips of a woman. The song itself deals with a woman named Carol and how her continuous infidelities make Black Francis wonder if there's some kind of undetectable internal mechanics that control her will. And just to give you an idea of just how dark the name Bone Machine is that Tom Waits named his 1992 album Bone Machine. It's not clear if there's like a real connection, but if there's anybody that I could see being influenced, because he's just like, he's a dark, mysterious guy, I could see Tom having something to do with that.
Wow. Again, you can see the connections. They were all about being very, very open about their influences. Apparently that the song, hang on, I gotta find it here. Where is it? Gigantic is based on a movie, Crimes of the Heart, which is about a character having a very illicit relationship, a woman having a relationship with I believe, an African-American underage boy. And so they turn it into this goopy love song, but the love and delirium of it is cranked up so much that, again, it sounds threatening and strange. Yeah. Like somebody, like, I know I'm falling into this black pit. I know. And the fact that it's wrong is what's turning me on. Like, this was back when, I think a lot of ways to get attention was to be dark and disturbing. And man, boy, did they do that.
Yeah,
they did not skip on that.
No, they did not. They did not. Something Against You, because everything somehow keeps coming back to penis. A common interpretation is that the something in the song is a penis, and then Gigantic. I mean, without saying it, they're saying it.
Well, yeah. I mean, and again, a lot of like bodies either broken down or someone the body itself has been so damaged, but the mind is still together in this broken body that can no longer get sex or love or companionship because of how broken it is, and it's driving the mind crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that's how a lot of people feel when they're in their teens. They just cranked it up to, hyper levels. This is Why Must I Be a Teenager in Love, but this is Why Must I Be a Horny Brain in a Broken, Disgusting Body that nobody wants to fuck. But it's still the same searching answer. But this is that same person 20 years down the line not being laid, and he's like, I'm ready to fucking kill somebody. Yeah. Like that, it's almost like there are incel anthems on this album, whether they meant to do them that way or not.
Yeah. This song, Gigantic, made such a big impression on Kurt Cobain. He said in 92, I wish Kim was allowed to write more songs for the Pixies because Gigantic is the best Pixie song and Kim wrote it. And her reaction is, well, it's better than somebody saying, oh God, you suck. Kim's so cool. And this is Albini's favorite track on the album. This is his favorite song.
Because wasn't he kind of shitty to the band later when he was talking? He said some stuff in interviews that was kind of mean that I think he apologized for. He really put the band down in terms of like, I've never seen a bigger group of cows waiting to be led around by the rings in their noses. He was really vicious.
Jared, look that shit up because everything I'm seeing is positive. Billy Corgan said good shit.
Yeah, no. I think that Albini later was like, I was in a bad place when I gave that interview, but I think he and the band really were kind of at odds with each other, which is why the album is so amazing, because all that frustration comes out. But Albini was very experimental. He was the one that was like, Kim, go in the closet when you're doing those woo for, Where Is My Mind, that echoey, creepy, all that.
Even the little in-between banter, it's just... I hate to, you know what, and I feel like I said this about another record that I did with Brian Posehn, but this is like this. If this was sketch comedy, this is like Mr. Show with Bob and David. Do you know what I mean? It's like except they put the fights in the show. Like instead of just the sketches, for like 2 seconds you see Bob and Dave yelling about he shouldn't have a hat on. They just put that on there. But it's like I could just see it's like when you start listening to these college radio records and you start seeing the trajectory of what comedy was doing at the time and what was popular. It's like they're so just hand in hand. It's like this had to have influenced all of that.
I mean, it was not even. I wouldn't even say in terms of subject matter, just being the ambient soundtrack. It was like it matched the way our brain waves were working at the time. I think people forget how dark and tense things were in the late 80s and early 90s. We thought that, George Bush Sr. might get another term, and we didn't know what was ahead. And things just seemed very dark and very bleak and very pointless. And then, luckily there was a little bit of hope. Maybe it was false hope. I don't know. But this was the ambient noise that I think a lot of us had in our brains anyway, even before the music existed. So they just really landed on what a big portion of the population was feeling. And it was a huge, driving in between gigs at the time, once I became professional, it was all Pixies music.
Yeah.
Blaine and I drove from Wichita to Baltimore one time, like just nonstop, and just listened to all fucking Pixies, and we're thinking of just the darkest fucking shit we could. It was because that was the fucking mood we were in, man. That was the mood we were in, and boy, did they nail it. And in a way, it was like, but it made it, not that it made it fun to be that grim and dark, but at least you feel like, oh, other people are feeling this. Okay, good. I'm not going crazy. We're all on the same boat that seems to be sinking. Okay, there is comfort in that. There's comfort in that shared darkness.
Yeah. How does it hit now? Being it's fucking, I don't even know how many years, 25, 30? Bad at math.
I think it hits now the same way that a lot of my early stuff hits for me when I look at it, where it's like, oh yeah, that's when I could live on 2 hours sleep a night. And that's when I wanted to go see 5 movies in a day and read 3 books and then go do 5 shows. And I had a million ideas and I didn't know what was what. So because I was so dumb, I was willing to try anything. Like the Pixies were, let's run his vocal through this guitar amp and see how it sounds. Whereas now, the more stuff you do, sometimes the more experience you have, the more second guessing you have. So you have to go through that, the middle age, like, okay, now it's like, and then luckily you have your 60s and 70s coming up where you're like, oh, wait a minute, I don't give a shit about any of this. In a weird way, a lot of times people, when they're in their 20s and then they're in their 70s, they do their most amazing work, because those are the 2 times that they just don't know enough to give a shit, or they know enough to know none of this fucking matters. I can do whatever the fuck I want. Those are the 2 sweet spots, in my opinion.
It's a great spot to be in. I mean, listening. It's just when I was at 19, it was in such a different type of music, and it's just like I almost wish somebody just would have pushed this more into my life, because it's
well,
great.
I said this. There was an interview about Mr. Show, I think on its 25th anniversary, and I said, I was one of a billion people interviewed, but I said, look, this show, it's not only is it about how brilliant the comedy is, because the comedy is all the greatness to filler ratio is insane. It's like 99% great, but it's about being young and fearless and not knowing any better. And they captured. It's rare when that gets captured on film. A lot of times there's a go between the young and then between the establishment. And for some reason, and just like this Pixies album, sometimes the young just gets through raw. And when it gets through raw, it captures that feeling of, fuck it, let's do anything. Like it's like Steven Spielberg says when he watches Jaws, he goes, Jaws to me is about being young and really stupid and fearless. Because I didn't know any better, and there's stuff I pulled off in that movie that I've never pulled off again, because unfortunately I know better now.
Yeah.
And like that stupidity is now gone. Like sometimes I need that stupidity back.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Did you have met them? Have you been like, is there a story or something?
I have never once met any of the Pixies. I don't know what I would say if I met them. I mean, I follow a lot of them on social media. I've never gotten to meet them. I think at one point in the early aughts, one of my friends was trying to set me up with Kim to like date, and it never happened. But I think it would have been a terrible relationship because I would have been so worshipful that she would have gotten sick of me in like a couple of hours and said, "All right, get the fuck away from me," because she's a friggin' genius, and she's also so just beyond cute.
How did you feel about when she left the group?
I felt really, really bad about it until I heard Last Splash. Then I went, "Oh, okay, that's fine."
She's fine, yeah.
She has I mean, I know that there was a lot of animosity and but she also had creativity to burn, and it's a sin not to burn that off when you have it. And the fact that she went and did the breeders and the amps and like all that stuff, just go fucking do it. She really, if anything, she was the most Pixie of the Pixies. Of I've got stuff to put out there, I'm putting it out, and it was all great. Everything, Pod, Last Splash, Safari, just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Fan-fucking-tastic. I'm amazed more Breeders' music hasn't shown up in films and TV, because that, if anything, is even more catchy / haunting / jarring.
Cannonball was one of my first bands that I was ever in. We used to cover that, and it wasn't. I didn't know about the history of her music or anything. I was like, this is just a badass song. Even the use of the cymbal stand, like it was great.
Well, the song Safari is one of my favorite songs ever. Like, really? Safari is brilliant. And that would be an amazing, I don't know, for an action sequence or some kind of like weird. Actually, I don't want to talk about it because I might use that in something. I don't want to spoil it.
All right. No, we have a few more minutes, and we're going to do rapid fire questions to get you out of here.
Really quickly, you might like this because you mentioned the Black Cat. I'm going to tell you my embarrassing Black Cat story. Because I grew up in Northern Virginia. I saw shows at the 930 Club, saw shows at the Black Cat. And so when I was touring with Comedians of Comedy, we were booked in the Black Cat. And we got there that night. The place was packed, wall to wall, couldn't move. And I was doing a little bit of a humble brag backstage after the show, talking to the manager, like, wow, we really packed out the Black Cat, huh? And he's like, yeah, no, you guys did really well. Like, I just want him to say, you sold out the Black Cat. I'm waiting for him to give me my kudos. I'm like, yeah, I mean, like, you couldn't even move out there. I mean, there was, probably couldn't sell another ticket, huh? He goes, you did really well, man. You guys really, I'm like, but like the ticket sales, it was crazy. He goes, no, the ticket sales were really strong. They were really strong. I'm like, well, I mean, we sold it out. I mean, you couldn't, and by the way, when you were on stage, you literally couldn't move. Like, it was wall to wall. You could not move. And he said, well, you sold 800 tickets. And I was like, well, so the place was sold out then. He goes, well, the Black Cat holds 1,200. And I was like, well, I mean, I was on stage. You couldn't fucking move. And he goes, well, we do a lot of like skate punk shows here and thrash metal. And those fans, are kind of like this. And your fans are kind of like literally because our fans were chubbier, they took up more space and they could only sell 800 tickets. So,
that's great.
Spatially, it was a sellout, but number-wise, it wasn't, just because of the extra bump.
That is hilarious. That is hilarious.
So there's my Black Cat story. I figured you would love that.
I love it. I've done the jam at the Black Cat, and which was great. But on June 27th, I'm doing a goddamn comedy jam at the 930 Club for the DC Improv 30th anniversary, and it's like Jessica Curson and Steve Byrne and Donnell, and then Red Grant, who's running for mayor of DC. He's doing it. So
I'm shooting a thing in Savannah, but if I'm not doing anything that night, if I took a commuter thing up, could I do a set?
We'll talk. We'll see how it goes. Let's see how this plays out on. I'd love that. That would be dope, man. It would be great.
Cool.
All right, rapid fire questions. These are from different fans.
All right.
Whose singing do you prefer more, Black Francis or Kim Deal?
Kim Deal, hands down. Sorry, Black Francis, I love you. Kim fucking Deal. My God.
If Pixies were an ethos, what would it be?
Try but don't be needy.
I like that.
Yeah,
that's good. Favorite song on this record?
It's so easy to say "Where Is My Mind," but You know what? I actually like Tony's theme because in the middle of all this darkness, they seem to be having so much fun doing the goofiest Saturday morning cartoon song in the middle of this sludge. So the fact that they put a bit of sherbet palate cleanser in there, I love it. I'm a big Tony's theme fan.
I love it. I love that you went with sherbet too. That's I know. Cafe Francois, dude. That's what they used to give you, a little bit of sherbet.
Yes, exactly.
Least favorite song on the record. Now I know that's a loaded question because sometimes the album's perfect, but is there anything on the record that you would skip over?
I mean, so if it's just by like just by default, I still think it's a good song, but Cactus after a while just sounds a little repetitive. It doesn't have any surprise to it. Each song takes a crazy left or right turn, and that one's just like, go sweat in your dress and send it to me. Go bleed on your clothes. Okay, we got it. Thank you. Like, there's no weird turn to it.
Yeah.
You know?
All right. I ask everybody this. I mean, I've asked everybody from what's Tom Hanks's wife's name? Rita Wilson.
Oh, Rita Wilson.
I've asked her. I've asked Neil deGrasse Tyson. Everybody. Ooh. What song on this record would you fuck to?
Oh. I mean, I got it. Well, oh my God. Definitely not Something Against You. That's a boner killer song, and I love that song. But that's a boner killer. Where Is My Mind? Where Is My Mind would be an amazing song to strip to, by the way. Imagine some early 90s, like kind of goth, suicide girl chick stripping at Mary's Club in Portland to Where Is My Mind. That would look insane.
Funny you say that. I used to be a strip club DJ in LA when I first started doing stand-up comedy, and there were some cool girls that danced to two songs that we mentioned today. So Alive by Love and Rockets.
What?
And that's a very sexy stripper song.
Oh, yeah.
And then Where Is My Mind?
No shit. So you've seen? Wow.
Been there.
Oh, that must look amazing.
It is. Well, you know, she was a little, it was a day shift. Let's just say it was day shift. It was day shift. And let's see. I was going to look at the rankings right now before we get you out of here, because I know this probably moved, and we're going to see if we think this is aptly, where is it? There it is. All right. So this is the first of two times we'll be talking about the Pixies. Doolittle came in at 227, and Surfer Rosa, though, has dropped on the new list, the 2020 list. It dropped 73 spots to 390. But Doolittle jumped 86 spots to 141. So being that you're a fan of both of those records, should Doolittle be ranked before Surfer Rosa, or should Surfer Rosa be before Doolittle?
I actually think that Doolittle should be above Surfer Rosa. I love Surfer Rosa. It is still a band that's forming. There is amazing stuff going on. There is also some great swings and misses on it, whereas Doolittle, they are so fucking confident from the beginning to the end, not just in terms of songwriting, but in terms of the sequencing of the whole album. It's not like REM's Murmur belongs above all of their albums, and a lot of their albums are great, but they caught something in that first album that even though they did good albums after it, they never caught it again. It happens with a lot of bands that sometimes your first time out, it never happens again, but the Pixies did better and refine what we do.
Yeah, I love it.
That's just my opinion.
No. Yeah. And that's all I wanted. Patton, thank you so much, buddy, for coming on, man.
Wow, this was fucking awesome. Hey, if you come back to Doolittle months and months down the road, I would be happy to come back, but I don't want to hog the Pixies if someone else wants to do them.
No, they're yours, dude. They're yours. Thank you, brother.
All right.